Today, we have Ms. Vandana Tolani, CEO of Convato out of Delhi, India. Hi, Vandana. And
Hi. Hi.
we are also in the company of Kisha Adia, who's the managing partner at Adan Corporate Finance, operating globally. I presume based out of India as well today. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce the topic today because the topic could be addressed under multiple points of view. And I would like to really understand, how many different angle of attacks we have on this because we could talk for more than just one episode. But, without further ado, I would first leave our gracious guests to introduce themselves briefly, and then I'll return with the questions. Vandana, floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here today. And, it's a pleasure to be here always on Latukun TV. I want to first of all thank the entire team of Latukun TV because they take a lot of efforts to create these shows and connect people worldwide, all over the world, startups as well as investors can take a lot of advantage from coming here on Latukun TV. Our audiences can ask us live questions as well. Coming to introduce myself, I had my own family office in Singapore and Jakarta. I worked as an investment banker and advisor to family offices and angel investors in Jakarta, Indonesia, helping startups from diverse background, from fintech and B2B tech all the way to consumer startups. I was raising funds for them and providing them with a range of services just as Convanto does today. And after 15 years of staying in Singapore and Jakarta, I came back to India. I did investments for a bit, then returned to advisory. That is when Convanto was founded. Today, Convanto is one of the most well known boutique investment banks in India and led by a female founder. I'm also a venture advisor with Loyal VC, the INSEAD led Canadian VC fund, having a core portfolio of 160 investments in 35 countries. I'm also a partner with GST Venture Studios, a Silicon Valley based venture builder. Over the years, I've arranged funding for startups and growth stage companies in diverse sectors like edutech, fintech, consumer B2C and B2B, agri-tech, health tech, food tech, disruptive and deep tech, as well as non-tech sectors. I would recommend all of you to have a look at my website for the wonderful testimonials written by my clients. This month, I've been nominated as one of the top 10 women leaders in Wealth Management 2021, and my expert opinion is often sought by leading business news channels and publications like VCTV, Business World, and I've also participated in 155 talks, and you can easily see them on YouTube and VCTV streaming sites. I'm also connected with 300 investors globally. We pick up global deals and we are sector agnostic, and typically we do $1 million to $25 million. And once again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much, Vandana, for this introduction. Kisha, to you now.
Thanks, Gianpaolo. My name is Channa Keshav Adya. I go by Keshav. I'm usually based out of Dubai now. I was in London for 15 years, and my entire career spans about 22 years, the first 10 years of which were with large investment banks such as Morgan Stanley, HSBC, Lloyds Banking Group, primarily working on fintech, post-merger integration, and pretty much on the operational side of things. And then for some weird and wonderful reason, I became a founder. And for about 5 years, I set up and ran, and in fact, even shut down several businesses. Had about 5 exits in all, two of them to VC funds. That gave me a first-hand experience of what it takes to raise capital all the way from the founders round, all the way to Series B, Series C, and upwards. Over the last 5 years, I've been in the corporate advisory and the venture capital space. I'm currently with Adan Corporate, one of my ventures. We're a team of around 50 people globally. We work on pretty much the whole spectrum of corporate finance and work with small, mid-sized businesses and PEVC funds on equity slash debt raises, mergers and acquisitions, corporate strategy, corporate development, pretty much everything that small, mid-sized businesses need globally. I'm an entrepreneur mentor in residence at London Business School, and I also write about startups, which you can view on my blog. That's me, Japalo. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Keshav. A pleasure to have you as well. And okay, as I said early on, I think this is a topic that could be addressed from multiple points of view.
Yes.
And I think any of these points of view would interest us and our audience. So I would like to start with a question, and I would start with Vandana. I mean, of course, Vandana, I presume you have direct experience in assisting or advising and investing on women-owned businesses, you know, and we know that prior to the COVID, for example, in the United States, only 3.45% research indicates of all investee companies were run by all female teams of founders. And actually, after COVID or during COVID, this percentage fell down to 2.4%. What do you think? And by contrast, I mean, you know, all male teams of founders have been increasing their attraction of capital from 85 to about 87, 88%. So how do you see the market nowadays? I mean, and what's your direct experience again in how we can, you know, address this imbalance?
See, I'm very passionate about this topic because I'm a self-made woman and without any backing. Now, typically, women work hard 10 times more to reach the same place, like compared to men. And currently in the United States, women make up approximately 11% of investment partners at VC firms, and only 13% of venture capital dollars go to startups with women on the founding team. Now, the 30-year average of all female founders' share of VC funding is only 2.4%, almost identical to the share in 2018, which is 2.3%. Now, it is important to talk about diversity and inclusion balance in the funding and founding teams within the startup ecosystem. An interesting study was, actually done by McKinsey in way back 2015, which investigated that what are the economic implications of achieving, gender parity in India would be, and the resulting number amounted to over 2.5 trillion by 2025. And I think that's a very, very powerful statistic. Also, if we see, if we extend this list to about, top VC firms, and micro VC firms, only 8% of them have full-time investing partner who's a woman. And this disparity itself points out that there is a merit in, having women on board, and it is an indicating factor that, having female investment partner might have been one of the contributing factors that led to some of the VC firms to be one of the top 100 VC firms globally. And this is just one statistic. And I think there are enough indicators and studies done to highlight the financial upside of a gender balanced team, especially at an early stage. Now, coming to my experience, I think there have been a couple of instances in the time that I have been in the industry. One of the things that have concerned me over the time is in that in a lot of VC firms, there are women in the investor relations team. There are ample women in the product team or financing team, but not in the investment team, not at the decision-making team. So this really concerns me. And, I feel that, women should be given a lot more opportunities, and having a diverse culture will always help companies and VC firms rise. This is my, small take, you can say, on your question that you asked.
Thank you very much, Vandana. And Keshav, same question to you. How do you think we can assist to reduce this imbalance? And what's your direct experience from either advising or investing in women-owned businesses?
In fact, there's a third perspective that I can bring as a founder, with working with other, female co-founders in the business. So, Vandana is absolutely right. These statistics speak for themselves, and I must say, from experience, as a founder, advisor, and as an investor, that things are improving, and they were definitely better than where we were, a decade ago, right? There has been, I would say, a phenomenal push by corporates, by investors, institutional investors, in fact, linked to ESG goals as well, on on having diversity, not just gender diversity, but also diversity across all walks of life, in startups and funds. In fact, as you may have read, companies such as Goldman Sachs, etc., are looking to take on projects, looking to take on deals, only if there is female representation on boards. So, from the perspective of large corporates, large institutions, there's definitely a pragmatic shift towards the better, and having more diversity, into boards, into startups, into funds, definitely helps with both the midterm and the short term, and the long term goals of businesses. In fact, there is a stat which sort of hit me in the face when I was doing the due diligence of one of the retail businesses, that women have access to about 76.5% of all deployable capital within households. Okay, yet there is such gross misrepresentation across all decision-making roles. And to add to what Vandana just said, the reason that there is tremendous success in funds or startups or businesses, for that matter, led by diverse teams, and female founders or female fund managers, is because they have that first-hand experience of deploying capital, through their experience. And like they say, having a culture based on a core set of values, around, around trust and collaboration is nothing new to, how women implicitly work. So I think that's the way it is.
Thank you very much, Keshav. And I think our audience would be interested in maybe picking our brains a little bit more and see how we really can pragmatically help on this topic. I mean, really by maybe providing one example. And if you want, I could start with my example. I'm a VC and a chairman of a single family office as well. And I've always tried throughout my career to achieve a ratio 1-on-1 in any investment activities that I've done, and even in hiring and retaining talent. Really trying to keep a good balance. I mean, it wasn't really ever 50-50. It shifted maybe from 48 to 52, something in that region, or sometimes it was even 50-50. But in general, we've been pointing towards this. But I think this is a little bit like a climate change activity that we're doing. It is not enough yet. So I think we have to step up our efforts. And what I've decided is on some of the particular activities that we are doing primarily on startups, is we are going to invest on 3 women-owned business for every 1 male-owned business, because otherwise this imbalance may never be corrected. Or anyway, we need to really reverse this trend. I mean, this is only my modest example, but again, I would like to hear from you a pragmatic idea on how we could help, because I'm sure our audience would be really interested in this. And Vandana, I would start with you.
Okay, so thank you for that as well. In my opinion, one of the best ways to bring in diversity in VCs is that VCs firms should require their portfolio companies to commit to set and achieve diversity targets. And they are uniquely positioned to encourage founders to address diversity and inclusion during the particularly crucial early stages of a startup, which will avoid the hard work of solving problems later. And they can help by expanding their own recruiting networks to provide more diverse leadership candidates for their startups. Similarly, VC firms could employ coaches and mentors to help founders create open, empathetic, and inclusive cultures. Additionally, they should consider adding a scouting program for sourcing potential investments with diverse founders. And another helpful way is speaking up for other employees who may not be in a position to speak up for themselves. And to close this gap, banks and investment firms need to put in place strategies to help identify innovative, high growth, female led companies and try to implement more inclusive policies to increase diversity in their portfolios. An example to consider is that of a European Investment Bank. They have set such policies in place to help identify innovative, high growth, female led companies and then provide advice, financing options, and assistance in making connection with other market players. And so far, these include lenders such as Spain's Caexa Bank, Romania's Granity Bank, and the Netherlands Carmingen Capital, and Italy's UniCredit. And other investments and development banks around the world should consider adopting a similar model. With a strong partnership between public banks and private investors, we can encourage a lot of VCs and other sources of finance to adopt a more gender balanced approach, ensuring access to finance for women led enterprises, ultimately creates jobs and contributes to our shared prosperity. And not only does empowering women make ethical and social sense, but it is also happens to be good for business. I mean, I would definitely want to hear what is the view of other panelists as well.
Thank you, Vandana. This is very precious insight. And Kisha, which one would be your concrete example or idea?
Yeah, just a couple of examples from my experiences as a founder as well as an investor. Um, as a founder, a lot of times people get into entrepreneurship thinking it's fairly flexible and fairly, what do you call it? You get to choose your own hours, but more often than not, it doesn't work like that. There are no set hours. So as a founder, I had several carer and parent friendly policies back in the startups, back in the businesses I started, which allowed people, especially women, who had to cater to the parents, the loved ones, or their kids, work flexi hours. This was about 8-9 years ago, and with COVID, this entire thing sort of the entire thing about flexible working has accelerated, and created a big institutional shift towards working flexi hours. So flexi hours obviously helps uh, carers and parents in choosing their hours and also making a contribution to the startup or the business, while not really foregoing anything with regards to quality. And I think over the years, flexible working has caused a lot of, I would say, a big impact on how startups and funds and businesses look at having more female representation in their working teams. Um, Secondly, I work with a number of VC funds, and I've seen that there is a lot of movement in this. In fact, there are organizations such as All Raise, which ensures that young women are mentored and supported in the venture capital ecosystem. And then the NBCA has something similar, which is called the Venture University, which is focused on gender diversity, and there are some grassroots levels, should I say, there are some efforts at the grassroots levels, and that's having an impact. I had a very interesting conversation with Heidi Roizen, who's I'd say the flag bearer in Silicon Valley for issues such as gender diversity and female-led VC funds and participation. And she, suggested that VC funds should start creating a pool of diverse professionals. Again, I'm not limiting it to just females or limiting it to race, but if you have a pool of people to go to, you can mentor them to step from, let's say, um, you know, um, a business which has just raised their Series C round and are now looking to go public, and you mentor them in making that shift to a publicly listed business. So VC funds and PE funds, for that matter, are working on creating this pool of talent, and they are helping, women or women potential, um, make that shift and close the gap on their transition. And I think it's just a matter of time before this becomes an important factor for investing in PVC funds. So yes, I'm quite happy with the way things are progressing there.
Thank you, Kisha. Thank you for these precious examples. I would like just to go down on the same point and hammer it down once more, because I hear many times, and even today I heard from you, the diversity issue. And I would think that, we are at a crossroad. I mean, we should primarily try and solve first the gender gap, because diversity by definition is always good. It's an enrichment if we have a diverse mix of cultures, of ways of thinking on how transactions are originated, structured, and executed, for example. It would always be good. So it's a no-brainer, if you will. But I think, where we are still the laggard as a whole group in finance is in the gender gap. I think if we never complete and address that issue first, even the diversity issue may remain and linger. So maybe just a short comment on this, Vandana and Kisha, before I go to the next question.
Sorry, I didn't get the question actually.
Well, I said, to work primarily on the gender gap issue rather than, thinking only about the diversity issue, because sometimes the diversity issue may be misleading. In some cases, there are some reasons that could be legitimate why there is not too much diversity on some particular deal or team building, lineups, whatever. But I think the gender gap is really affecting and having a profound impact on the way the financial world is organized, and by analogy, by the way the economy is organized. So what do you think? Is it more important to address the gender gap first, and diversity can remain a little bit in the background? At least that would be my take. What do you think on that?
Okay, I get it now. So, diversity should mean that you are strengthening your board. You are strengthening the point of view that you are bringing into the team. And the first thought about gender balance and creating more inclusive culture has to be that it's creating something that you can be proud of. And creating a more inclusive culture and bringing in more points of views on the table is only going to give you more opportunities to invest in, scale, and avoid some of the mistakes or blind spots that you wouldn't have seen had it not been put in perspective. Now, I feel in my opinion, bias within the VC industry is preventing funds from being allocated to the best investment opportunities. In fact, according to a study in venture capitalists, only 7% of the people are on decision making teams are women. That having been said, if we want both better VC outcomes and more gender balance in entrepreneurship, we need to root out the bias, hampering ventures at the earlier stages, and not just gender bias, since there is evidence that whether it is bias, whether it's particular for a gender or ethnicity, or makes a firm less successful overall. Now, if you look at it, America, which is thought to be a country that is in general more open-minded than India, the percentage of women in finance industry was less than a quarter. So you can imagine how bad the situation is in other countries. And this should obviously be a concern, because at the end of the day, women help lift up economies and should definitely be given more opportunities to work in this industry. A lot of them are held back by their families. They aren't allowed to work after marriage. And this attitude needs to change. And another reason they aren't given many opportunities is that women or females, they aren't really considered business savvy. People don't believe that they are capable of running a business as a man is. And to me, the ideal situation would be better education for women who want to get into these sort of businesses, as well as more support or opportunities provided. This way, they will be better and succeed on their own merits. Giving you an example, till today we have blues for the boys and pink for the girls, and soccer for the boys and dolls for the girls. So, education from home has to change a bit in these areas, and both the girl and boy have to be treated equally. And there has to be no difference between the blues and the pinks and soccer and dolls, etc. It should be okay if the girl also wants to play soccer at times. And the key to a startup success, I strongly believe, is diversity. This is because chances are that any company's customer base is gender diverse, and women make about 75% of consumer purchasing decisions, and about 40% of the employees who make enterprise purchasing decisions are women. And companies that can see the world through their customers' eyes and build the right product for them are more likely to succeed. And having a leadership team that is reflective of the background of customers is a powerful mechanism to ensure good decisions. And additionally, research on effective decision making cultures shows that teams that proactively fight groupthink and conformity are more successful. This is what I feel about the entire thing.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I lost you for a second.
Yes.
Keshav,
Hello.
to you.
Just great points, Vandana. Just to add on to what Vandana just said very quickly, there is no, I would say, bias, in my opinion, towards racial diversity or gender diversity. There is no one size fits all approach. Okay, like you rightly pointed out, Shapalo, it all depends on the nature of the organization and the nature of the board or the senior management team that is required to get the job done. While I am, anti-quota, based on, various factors, but I do feel that, there has to be some sort of a quota set aside for both racial as well as as well as gender diversity. But again, it all depends on getting the best person on the job, who is capable, who is, who's experienced, and who can get the things done. Which comes first, and which needs to be addressed first? There is no right or wrong answer to this, Japalo.
Now, thank you very much, Kesha, for these comments. I tend to agree with you, but I see in general, if we want to steer and propel the world forward, and at least here we're speaking about our own industry now, which is the investment industry, corporate finance world. I think we cannot oversee this aspect because, delaying addressing this aspect, again, exactly like it's happening in the climate change issues, maybe, well, can show us it could be then too late. I mean, to solve some problems. I mean, we need to really act. And of course, merit should always come first. But we need to create an equal ground on which everyone that can prove that he or she has merit, I mean, is in the condition to prove it. And the provocation that I have for both of you now, and also for our audience, is if we rotate this prism and take a look at the situation from another point of view, because now we've been talking about the founders. But again, Vandana maybe inadvertently touched that aspect already, which was, the core of the content of my next question to you is, the decision makers are primarily men in VC funds and in single family offices in general in the investment industry. In the United States, it's about 12% only of the decision makers who are women in investment funds. I could say that in the single family offices, thanks God, probably we have a higher percentage. I mean, nobody has really produced any research on that, but from my direct experience, I would just probably put the number at twice as much, if not thrice as much, but still we're long and far away, from reaching our destination. So I think this is part and parcel with the problem that we've been discussing. If the men are just left alone to decide, obviously it is very easy to predict that the situation may not change anytime soon. Vandana?
No, situations are changing. I mean, but decision-making team or decision-making powers, women should be allowed to manage money. Now, the whole thing is that if they are given that authority, I think they can really do well. I have seen women entrepreneurs come to me and they go back home and they ask their husbands what to do next. And then the husband says something and again they get demotivated or something. And I have seen funds where women are on the board, but behind a male is making decision. So I think that should be avoided. And, passing subtle comments to women while they are at work, or, I think while we treat each other equally with respect, I think talent also is important. Not only that, try to give them that decision making thing for a change, either the brother is making decision or the father or the husband or somebody else. So that's why they fall back a lot, because then at some point they lose their self-esteem, though they are talented, they have the skills, and it takes a long while before they go back to recognizing. Now, how do we correct all this? We need to, it's all begins from home. Like I mentioned earlier, that difference is at the home only. We create this blue and pink, and then the soccer and dolls and cooking for this one, and this work is for this one. I think that is where we go wrong also. So there's a lot of things, and it's going to take another 10 years before we really see a complete 360-degree change. Though I see a lot of changes now, but still it's not as much as we being in the modern society also, there we experience a lot of things happening in the daily lives as well.
Thank you very much, Vandana, for this precious insight. Kishal?
Um, well, Jean-Paulo, all I can say is, if you ask yourself the question, um, you know, could be about your wife, about your daughter, about someone in your family, who's got the potential, who's ready to, get into, something really big. And if you ask yourself the question that, let's say my daughter is about to launch into this world, and I want her to have this opportunity in her workplace, in the startup, in the fund, and I want her to be graded by her merits, and not just, gender or race, you know, and I want her to get an equal treatment to that of her male peers or male counterparts, then what can I do to change the system? What can I do to help her? If people adopt this philosophy, this approach, whenever they bring on board female startup founders, female decision makers, executives, fund managers, um, you will see that it suddenly becomes very personal to them, and because they put themselves into somebody else's shoes, and they see the world through that lens, they start seeing all the impediments that come in the way of these new hires or new recruits, and suddenly people become a lot more open minded than before. And if people adopt, I would say, this empathetic approach, and if they look at solving impediments, um, and if they look at creating supportive policies and um, you know uh, supportive roles, should I say, then yes, a 360-degree shift can be made possible. And it's like Vandana said, it's just a matter of a few years before this transition happens. And when that happens, the world will hopefully be a much better place.
Kishal, this is really important. You mentioned empathy, and I would add sincerity because, too often in male dominated financial circles, I hear,
Yeah,
maybe through the locker room chats,
yeah,
the fact that men are bragging about having given a chance to the
yes,
women in their teams to achieve it, to complete something. But actually, and this is so subtle and even vicious, I would say, they have put the women in condition not to perform. It's a little, if I can give you an example, if I tell you, okay, you can borrow my car, but I don't tell you where I left the car keys, and I left you stranded, and you have to scrounge around looking, in every nook and cranny looking for the keys. I mean, I have to put you in the condition to perform, because it's not enough to tell and to, advertise the world. Oh yes, we're doing this. I have to create really the material conditions for this to happen. Anyway, we are at a lightning round. I think we have so much in this topic that we possibly can have some other panels on the same. But I would like to leave maybe 30 seconds each to leave us with a final thought on this topic today, and just let the audience know where they can reach you in case they want to make contact with you. Vandana?
So, before we end, I want to add on something. I have seen women driving cars and several men commenting, you know, oh, that must be a lady that is driving if something goes wrong. But when a male does something wrong while driving, that comment doesn't come. Oh, it must be a male, while driving that car. So I think this also needs to change. These comments continuously commenting on, oh, because this has happened, it must be a female. Oh, because that has happened. So I think that also needs to change. And the reason why I'm very passionate about this topic is not because I hate men or anything. It's just that I feel I have myself, I'm a self-made woman, and I've seen all these ups and downs, and I realize what women go through a lot. So hence that is the thing. And of course, we look into all kinds of startups here with lots of talents. So I just want to clarify that as well. And I could be reached out on LinkedIn or my website, www.convanto.com. And once again, thank you for having me here. This is a great topic, and sometimes it goes into a debate kind of a thing also. So
Brilliant, Vandana. Thank you for joining us. And Keshav, back to you for the last 30 seconds, and tell our audience where they can reach you.
Very quickly, diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is being invited to dance. So I think funds, businesses, startups, and the society in general needs to be a lot more inclusive. Diversity was something which was formulated about 20, 25 years ago, but now I think the focus should be on inclusion. On that note, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. My handles are CKADYA. And you can also look at my personal website, ck-adya.com, for my experience, and my company's website, adancorporate.com, for everything about fundraising, startups, and the whole spectrum of business growth. A pleasure to be here, and I must say thank you very much for the amazing session, Apollo.
Thank you very much, Keshav. And without further ado, I would thank all of you, our esteemed guests, our Aletoken VCTV staff, Maria, Carol, Cosmic, for being always attentive and prepared. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
bye. Thank you.